Hey, what's up? Welcome to the Creatives Conversation. My name is Gabriella Martay. I am the director of Helps 2 and the owner, and I'm super excited to be back all by myself this time and just talk about fighting discouragement. Before I even jump in though, I just want to talk about a few things, do some housekeeping or whatever you want to call it, but I just want to talk about the reality of the Creatives Conversation podcast. If you are new here, I want to encourage you. I think a lot of us walk around and we don't think that we're creatives, but when we say creatives and we're having conversations about what it's like to be a creative or what creatives do, a creative is somebody who has a dream, who is going to build that dream, and who wants to bring it about in their lifetime. And so if you have a dream to, do something like build, a boat or whatever, that's creative. That's creativity at its finest, And so a lot of us talk about entrepreneurship in terms of, hey, I'm a creative and I'm building this thing and I want to sell it. So we do focus a lot on that. But if you have a dream to honestly just build something and create something, you're a creative to the fullest. So welcome. Come sit at the table with me. Today, I want to show y'all a little something. We are celebrating today right now. It is the beginning of July, so this podcast will probably come out a little bit later than that. But the beginning of July of 2020, we put out our ebook of We Don't Need Another Marketing Book. It's the first book and right now the only book that we have put out here at Helps 2. It has been incredible. We shot a commercial for it and we released it on July 1st of 2020. Now, today it's July 3rd, 2021, and we have in my hands, y'all, the physical copy of We Don't Need Another Marketing Book. I am overwhelmed, overjoyed, because it has taken us 4 years, 7 different people and their talents and skills, and just honestly a lot of prayer and labor to get this thing out. I feel like I've been pregnant with this thing for way too long, and it's here. And myself and Grace Robinson, the content supervisor here at Helps 2, she and I sat down, we wrote this book together, we reworked it. That's a tongue twister. We reworked it over and over and over again. It went through the eyes and hands of 3 different editors. We worked with 2 different graphic designers, and we worked with another artist, Amber Huffman, who also does a lot of brand management here at Helps 2. She did the cover, and it has just been a whirlwind. So we're excited to present to you We Don't Need Another Marketing Book. You can go to the website, wedon'tneedanothermarketingbook.com, or if you want to abbreviate it, WDANB.com. You can go pre-order your copy, or if you're watching this way later, just order your copy and get this book. To be honest, this is called We Don't Need Another Marketing Book because we've seen so many people just try to get up on people like you who are watching these videos, like people who want to create and tell them the next best formula or the next best thing or the next best strategy. And the reality is the internet is changing so fast that it is really hard to keep up with all of that, even though we do here at Helps 2, but we don't want to sell you something that's not going to work for you long term. So this, we'd like to think of it as like a marketing Bible for creatives. It is, I believe we're talking about 14 timeless truths that you can always take with you, no matter if you're trying to use the internet with them, which the internet is talked about a lot in here. But Grace Robinson and I, we sat down and we said, what do we wish we would have known 10 years ago when we got started in our own crafts? Grace is a writer. I think she's published 4 books. I am a musician. I've toured about 4 or 5 times, put out, I don't even know how many albums now. I keep putting out music. And I've gotten to see radio play my songs and different things like that. And it's been a ton of fun. And so we sat down and we said, honestly, we had to pave a way and search so much for different ways to get our music and our writing out there. And we were like, what would we tell ourselves if we could speak to ourselves 10 years ago? And it's all in this book. And just to honestly be candid, I'm just going to read y'all a little bit of the chapters because it really goes over some things that I think a lot of us don't think about when it comes to creating. And these are the things that when we get approached by creatives, we think about all the time and we hear about all the time. So chapter 1, the world needs your vision. Chapter 2, be journey-minded. This is a long-term journey, right? It doesn't happen in a day for most of us. I mean, you might go viral, but the actuality of that happening, You probably won't. So the actual stats are stacked against all of us, not just you, but against me and everybody else who's a creative in terms of going viral. And so you got to get prepared for a long-term journey. While you're waiting, what do you do while you're waiting? You know, don't worry about where you fit. I think that's a common struggle a lot of us creatives go through. Chapter 5, learning a new kind of work. Being an entrepreneur in 2021 is way different than being an entrepreneur in 2019, 2018, back in the day. And that's not that long ago. So it has changed a lot. And we want to give you guys some real proven tips and just structure and how to make money with your craft right now, today. Chapter 6, rejection is your friend. I think so many of us fear that. How do you navigate that? Chapter 7, relationships are catalysts. Networking, the power of getting to know people and how it can propel you forward. Chapter 8, social media, your frenemy. I mean, we struggle with it as creatives. I have heard so many creatives talk about, I don't want to do social media. I feel so inauthentic, or what do I say? These people don't want to hear from me. The reality is it's the best way to reach people right now. It could be different in a few years, but as of right now, it's one of the best ways to reach people. And if you're really serious about people finding what you do, you're going to have to use it. So we tell you how and what it looks like and how to get over that mindset. Chapter 9, are you a real artist? Let's talk about it. I'm not even going to give you any details because you got to read it for yourself. Chapter 10, yes, your art is worth paying for. So many of us struggle with that. Chapter 11, what to do when you're stuck. I think we're going to talk a little bit about that today and just what I have prepared for us. But that is huge. What do you do when you're stuck? What does it look like? How do you navigate that? We're going to talk about it because Grace and I have both been super stuck. Let's be honest. Chapter 12, imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome is when you feel like, I don't want people to realize that I am no good at what I do. And a lot of artists who are major and have $1 million record deals and book deals and they're actors, they still deal with this. How do you navigate it? We're going to talk about it in this book. And then lastly, chapter 13, don't stop learning ever. It just talks about really diving into learning. You will be most successful if you have this attitude of, I need to keep learning, and life is not over when I get to this level. This is a journey. So I'm so excited about this. I cannot believe I wrote like more than half of this book. It's so wild. And to be honest, it's just really beautiful. We had a graphic artist. She was on one of our podcasts way before this, Jess Barrett. She designed some of these images, you guys. They're incredible, like by freehand. We used creatives every ounce of the way with this book. Nothing was commercialized or used I guess made by a huge commercial company. Everybody is an entrepreneur and an artist of sorts. So we put our foot in our mouth and we put our butts to work and we made this book. So go get it. It's a good read and I know it will help you get to where you want to go and honestly encourage you to stay in the game. So that happened. We are done. So what's next? I feel like I could just like go party and be done, but we got other things on the table. So we'll be bringing you guys more things as time goes on, but for now, we don't need another marketing book. It's out. Cannot believe it. So excited. Okay, let's jump in today. I want to talk about fighting discouragement, all right? And I wanted to read some testimonies from the book, but I think maybe we'll do that later or something. But I want to talk about this because so many creatives are discouraged. Like I talk to person after person after person who has a creative gift or some kind of skill or ability to get somewhere. And the reality is that they are discouraged by something. It is wild when you just talk to different people. How many people are discouraged? So we're jumping in today because we need encouragement. And to be honest, last night I had my own spiral moment. I was on Instagram and I saw something, I got triggered, and as a creative, as Martay the musician, and I go by Martay as a musician, that's my middle name, so it's not like a fake name, but like I was totally discouraged. And in one moment, I just kind of spiraled out of control. And the reality is I was super discouraged and I had to face myself in the mirror when I woke up today, because I was last night, and really ask myself some questions. And those questions we'll get to later. But I want to just talk about what does it look like when you're discouraged? How do you get past it? And what's the next steps? And so first of all, I just want to talk about some lies, right? Some lies that we all often can believe, we're tempted to believe. Whether you believe them or not, they've probably knocked at your door. I feel like lies can knock at your door. Like the best analogy is a lie can knock at your door, and then all of a sudden you find yourself believing something that really was never the truth and it's not for you. And then you end up kind of like manipulating all of your actions to kind of suit and like undergird that or support that lie that you believe. And so some lies that I've told myself most recently that I'm like, wait, is that true though? I want to share them with you. So one of the lies is I need to be better in order to move forward. I need to be better in order to put something out. I need to be better in order to be an influencer. I believe that some of you watching this, you want to be an influencer. And I think as much as so many of us shy away from that, I think it's a great desire. I think there's an innate desire in each of us to want to be great. I think God, honestly, if I'm going to be honest, gave us that desire. So I don't think we need to shy away from it. If you want to be an influencer, I say, hey, like be honest with yourself. You want to be an influencer. But the reality is that this lie that you need to be better or you need to, let's be honest. Let's back up a little bit. Maybe you do need to practice a little bit better. Some creatives aren't ready to put their art out. But a lot of us, we struggle with this idea of perfection. It has to be perfect. Like, for example, this is a test book right here. I'm going to just be honest. Can we be honest today? And it's not aligned. But the reality is that I'm not going to not tell you about my book because that, this front cover is messed up by the publisher, the publishing book company. I won't tell you who it was because I don't want to, shame them. But they're going to send us new books to where it is centered and aligned. But right now, it's, I think, you're seeing it from the left. This is left justified. And that's not how we created it. It's not perfect at all by any means. And, perhaps there's a typo in here. I don't know. We have read this book 50 million times. It's not perfect. I know that. But does it need to be better for me to put it out and for y'all to hear about it? No. I think there comes a time when you have to really say, hey, I'm not going to be perfect. I don't always need to be better. Life is a journey. You know that one song, Life is a Highway by Rascal Flatts? I think the reality is life is a highway. It's a journey and you will be on that highway for a long time. So why hold yourself back from being the person you want to become because you're always saying I need to be better? The next lie, I need more money. All right, I think a lot of us believe this all the time. And the reality is we do need more money, but right where you're at, what can you use to do what you dream of doing and to like get one step further? So it's not perhaps a full lie. These are like partial truths, I feel like, to be honest. And that's where it gets messy, right? You have this thing, it is a partial lie, but there's a little bit of truth in it. Like, yeah, you do need money to get to the furthest extent of your dream. But the reality is if you never actually use what you have right now, you're stuck. And so, sure, yeah, you need money, and that might be something that needs to be worked out in the future. Maybe you'll get strategy as you move forward. But like, what about right now? How can you move forward right now? Another lie, I'm too old to make it. I'm too old to do this. I'm too old. Or I'm too young. I'm too young. My age is a factor, right? That lie. It's just not true. I mean, we're not talking about sports here. Maybe you are too old to play in the NFL. Maybe you are too old to like play on the JV basketball team. Maybe you are. But like the reality is when it comes to creativity, you're never too old. You can always jump in the game. You can always learn. I think that's a huge lie. I'm too old to learn a new craft. I'm too old to learn this new way of doing my craft. Nope, you're just not. You're not. I think the best story is my dad. He's a mechanic. And to be honest, being a mechanic is very creative. I never knew until I started like actually paying attention. And so there was an old way for him to diagnose a lot of the cars that he works on. And then, eventually, because we're modernizing as a society, a new way came to pass. And he could say, hey, I'm too old. And all these younger guys who work with me, they are way more talented, have more energy, whatever. He could have said all of those lies and believed all those lies, but he didn't. He was like, I know the old way and I'll learn the new way because I want to know. Period. I want to be great in my industry. And I think it's the same for us creatives. We're never too old to learn, to do something, to jump out, to risk, to just go for the greatness. We're not too old or too young. I'm not that good and people will figure it out. That's the imposter syndrome that we talk about in this book. That's a lot. That's a load of therapy sessions that probably need to happen there. But the reality is everybody kind of feels that way sometimes, I really believe. The reality is that we're all human and we're not perfect and we're going to make mistakes. And I think that's really where that's rooted. but no one's going to figure you out. Like, what does that even mean? Figure you out that you're not good enough? I mean, if you're not good enough, you're not good enough for someone. But the reality is everybody has an opinion, you know? Everybody has an opinion. Like people say, everyone has a butthole, you know? So I hate to be so vulgar, but the reality is everybody has one of those. And so who do you want to be and what do you want to do? Forget what people have to say and if they figure you out. It's so hard to get discovered is another lie I hear often. Well, why do you need to be discovered? Is that the only way you can do your craft? Are you only in it if you get discovered? If you are, maybe it's time to reevaluate. And I know a lot of people might hate me for that, but if you're in it to really do the craft and to make it your lifestyle and do this, like make it a career, you're gonna have to start from the bottom sometimes. And the reality is just why do you need to be discovered to be successful? I think that's the main question. That's a lie. You don't have to be discovered to be successful. Like, I was never discovered by a record label as a musician, but I still got to tour. I've been to almost every state except for 2, touring musically. I have gotten to do incredible things like open for Snoop Dogg and put out albums and go to like the Caribbean to do music. No record label had to come discover me to do that. Now in 2021, the odds are in your favor with the internet. You can do so much and put your best foot forward. You don't need to be discovered. And as these podcasts go on and as you just dive into resources, and they don't have to be ours. I really believe you can find a way to reach the people that want to hear and do what you're pursuing, what you're creating. It's possible. So you don't need to be discovered. Get that out of your mind. I think a lot of us, we think that, but the reality is once you get free from that, it's like the world is yours. When you realize I have the power within me, invested in me, to become great, and I don't need someone else who already is great to come like bestow upon me their greatness so I can become great. It really does free your mind and your heart, and you can kind of just go for it. Another lie, there's a bunch of people who do this, so why do I matter? I mean, yeah, like there's a bunch of people that do a lot of things. Like there's a lot of people that swim like professionally. So like, we could all say, well, who needs another professional swimmer? But the reality is there's something inside of you and it matters because you crave to do it. Like you matter and what you want matters and what you desire matters. I heard somebody say, an influencer, her name's Karen Bond. She does a lot of like housing stuff, and I mean that's like me butchering it, but she remodels homes, and I think she's from like Vancouver, Canada. And the reality is she said, I want to feel famous in one of her podcasts and one of her like episodes on YouTube. She's like, so I do what I want to actually like have that feeling. I don't need to wait for someone to give it to me. She wants to feel like she's an influencer, so she just goes and becomes one. Like she started her YouTube channel, puts out her videos, eventually started making more money and hired someone to do her YouTube videos and follow her around. Hey, she wanted it. She never asked someone, hey, how many housing, whatever you call them, are there out there? Do I need to like consider the number? She never considered it. She said, I want to do this. That's all I need in order to do it. I'm going to go for it. She said, I want to feel this way, so I'm going to go for it and feel this way. I don't need anybody's permission. And that's where that lie is rooted. You don't need anyone's permission to do what you're called to do what you want to do creatively. And to be honest, we need you. We need what is going on in your mind out in this world, however you want to design it, whether it's graphic design, website design. If you're designing shoes, like God knows what you're doing. But like the reality is the way you see the world, nobody else sees it that way. And that is a really cool thing. And we need that. I don't know if we know why we need it yet, but we won't know until it becomes and manifests. So that's that. Life would be different if I had. That's another lie. If I had this or that, and we make these excuses, right? And sure, life would be different if you had all these things. But what about what you have, right? If I only had more time, I could blank, right? And the lies go on and on and on. That's just like, I don't know, a good group of lies that I know personally. I've heard other people talk about personally. But the reality is we have to lay these to rest. And we have to come to a place where we look at ourselves and say, what do I have now to pursue my craft, to become great, to become the influencer I desire to become, and what can I do with it? And I think all of those different lies, quote unquote, that I just named, some people are going to be like, well, those aren't all lies. Like, there's some truth to those. Yeah, for sure. But we use them. The lie that really is true is, hey, that statement is made, and so I can't move forward until that statement is fulfilled, until I get that thing, until I get that approval. No, that's the lie, really. The lie is that you can't move forward right where you're at, and that's just not true. And so I think some of us are discouraged, and when I get discouraged, I start asking myself questions. And I want to ask you guys some questions today. To end this podcast, I'm going to ask you some questions, whether you're in the car listening or you're on YouTube watching or you're getting ready for bed, washing dishes, wherever you're at. Just take some time, think through these. Maybe you need to replay this last bit of the podcast or the YouTube video and just pause after each question and really ask yourself these questions, because it will begin to unlock for you next moves, motivation to keep going, and what you need to continue. So, first question, are you comparing yourself to others? If you can answer no, you're healthy, you're good. But if you answer yes and you're honest with yourself, what will it take to stop doing that? Because comparison, I think it was Theodore Roosevelt, he said, comparison is the thief of joy. And if you as a creative constantly don't worry about your own progress, but are focused on other people's progress and not concerned with yours, you'll always be at a disadvantage. You'll always be discouraged. You have to set before yourself some progress. I would even say set before yourself some goals, maybe 3 goals. One overarching goal, maybe some smaller goals to get to that overarching goal, right? So for example, I want to put out an album. That's an overarching goal by July 2022, okay? What are 2 other goals that'll help you get there? I'm going to record 1 song a week, and I'm going to contact so-and-so to do my artwork. Boom, you're on your way to creating an album. But if you only worry about what Martay is doing or what the next artist is doing, if you're a musician or whoever, then you're just not going to get there. Put something into play, into motion. Okay, question 2. What do you have right now and what can you do with it? I mentioned that earlier. But what do you have right now? Ask yourself that question for real. Don't just kind of let it go by and over your head and you just forget about it. But what do you have right now and what can you do with it? So for example, I'm going to use myself as a musician. I have recording equipment. Instead of me just looking at other people and being discouraged, I have recording equipment. I have microphones. I have a producer. I have a videographer I work with often who's like a brother to me. I can use all these things to go forward. And so instead of me being well, I don't have a record deal for $100,000. I don't have a bunch of marketing dollars. Well, I can say to myself, well, Gabriella Martay, what do you have though? I have an extra $100, extra whatever dollars to put towards marketing. It's not $100,000, but I have that. And maybe one day it'll be $100,000, but let's take the first step, right? Same for you. What does it look like for you? Question 3, are you struggling because of a knowledge gap? I think this is one that maybe a lot of people don't even think about when they think about what's next. A knowledge gap is when basically you lack knowledge to even understand how to get to the next step. So you think to yourself, it's just impossible. I can't do it. No, that's not true. You just lack knowledge. So I'm doing a triathlon right now. As an example, I have to swim 500 meters. I'm not a swimmer by trade. I am going to become one by the grace of God. But the reality is I'm a little nervous and I feel like it can't be done some days and I'm discouraged some days about it, but that just means I have a knowledge gap. So for me, I'm watching YouTube videos about swimming by professional swimmers, and I'm also getting a swim coach. So that helps to fill my knowledge gap. It's no longer impossible. It's no longer discouraging. There's hope on the other side of the tunnel, at the end of the tunnel, because I'm filling my knowledge gap. Number 4, are you too hard on yourself? I think some days we want life to be McDonald's. We want to see our next project or our next thing or a piece of success or influence come from just a random bird that flies by, just like that. We want it to happen so quick. But sometimes we need to just back up and be what is a realistic time schedule for me to become who I want to become and do what I want to do? Some people don't get to where they're going as an artist for 20 years, and that is crazy to think about. But if you're doing sculpting or something and you want to be a big sculptor, I actually worked with a big sculptor where I'm from in California who is famous. I'm going to leave him unnamed just because, but I worked with him. It took him like 15 years to even get noticed in his industry. And he's big now, and he's done sculptures all over the world, like Tokyo. He's been to Thailand, all these places. But that didn't happen overnight. And if I'm a sculptor, right, and I'm looking at him like, I want to be like him, but have no concept of what kind of timetable it took, that could be very discouraging. See where I'm going? So what does it look like for someone in your industry doing what you do to have a proper perspective of a timetable? Next question. Are you asking for help? I think it's discouraging when we feel all alone. It's really easy to be like, well, I'm the only one here. You know, you might have a knowledge gap or whatever, and you're dealing with all these emotions and thoughts, and you feel like it's too hard, and then we never ask for help. I would encourage you to ask for help. That'd probably be my biggest tip. Like, whether you're spiritual and you ask God for help, and you think very practically and you ask people for help, I think it's all of them really. I ask God for help and his guidance, then I ask people for help and their guidance. I think you gotta ask for help. It is the next step to getting to where you wanna go if you feel stuck and discouraged. And lastly, what are you truly called to do in this season of your life? I feel like some of us force it with creative projects. Like this book, y'all, took us 4 years. And there were moments where I just wanted to force it because I was like, I don't want to do it anymore. I'm ready for this to be done. And the truth of the matter is that I was forcing it. The book needed to run its course, go through its process, which was 4 years. I didn't know it at the time. I thought we could write this in like a year. Turns out I'm wrong. And so what are you truly called to do? And I say that because while we were writing this book, I went through so many seasons of life, like seasons where there was major heartbreak and seasons where I had to focus on something else. That's okay. Give yourself a little bit of grace, a little bit of kindness, and know not every season is going to be this highly productive season where you change the world and bring about something fresh and new. Creatives, we need space. We need life to happen. We need things to change our perspective so we can create. I think it's really easy when you look at social media in the world and, you know, especially I'm a marketer, right? I do marketing and I'm good at reaching people. And they say in the marketing world that content is king. The reality is, it is. People want to see content, right? If you're on Instagram, content is posting all the time. And you do your best and you get the most engagement when you post consistently. But when you don't have anything because you're worn down, you're in a different season of life where it's not really for you to produce something in this season, it's okay. It's really okay. So that's what I have for you guys today. I know it's maybe a bit different than normal, but I felt like we had to talk about it. So here we are, discouragement. How do you fight it? I gave you all of that. Let me know what you think. If you're on YouTube, leave a comment. If you're on Spotify or you're on a podcast app, Apple Podcasts, let us know what you think. Hit us up and follow us on social media. We want to hear from you, be in community with you. And honestly, we got some more things dropping in the near future. You don't want to miss it. I am having the time of my life with our team. We are building a lot and we want you to be involved. You to be a creative that we do life with. So say hi. My name is Gabriella Martay here at Helps Too, and you're listening to The Creatives Conversation. I'll see you later.